Okay, it is Thursday, 27 April in the year of our Lord 2023. Welcome to the second hour of the War Room. Let's go. We've got two great heroes and leaders of this movement in this incredible fight right now over saving the nation from this out of control spending in our debt. We've got Andy Biggs of Arizona and Chip Roy's joining us by phone. I'll start with Congressman Roy from Texas. Politico is reporting that the White House is kind of in meltdown because McCarthy was able to pull together 218 votes, which they never thought would happen, and kind of put it in the grill that we gave an opening bid here. The Biden White House supposedly does not know how to respond. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be on with Andy, my great friend. Andy's one of the warriors of conservatism, and he and I ended up on different places on the boat on this because Andy, being a patriot, wanted to see more cuts and wanted us to go even further. I think we got to a place that was good to get sent over to the Senate. To jam it down Schumer's throat and the president's throat because they refused to sit down at the table. You know, we got basically $4.8 trillion in reductions, $1 trillion in year one reductions. Andy was one of the guys who wanted upfront cuts from day one. We all joined in with him on that battle to get $1 trillion up front. I think we got some really good policies put here to go put it on to them, make them have to answer why they're not going to respond like we did. Say, if you want to raise the debt ceiling, okay, which none of us want to do. We don't want to borrow more money for our kids and grandkids. Then we damn well ought to get some changes. And that includes getting rid of the student loans. That includes cutting actual discretionary spending to reset the baseline. That includes getting COVID money back. That includes getting rid of the ridiculous subsidies in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which goes into the fat cat wallets of all of these, green corporate whores who are out there screwing our country up and make us beholden to China while they get rich and we subsidize them, screwing up our economy and undermining oil and gas. So these are all things that move the ball forward down the field. And I look forward to watching Democrats try to, paint us into a corner and use the same scare tactics that we want to cut money from women and children and old people and everything else. We're going to fight back and say we want economic growth and to save our country for our kids.
Congressman Roy, and I think I've got it right. You were chief of staff before you became a congressman. You've been in these debt ceiling fights for many, many years and have been part of some of the best action we've had to really jam people up and make them face the fact that we can't keep spending like this. Do you think, I understand this was an interim to try to get to something to force Biden and these guys to respond, but in a more perfect world, where would Chip Roy start doing this? Because $4.5 trillion, as you know, is not going to get us there. Where do we go from here?
Well, it's a great question, and I also want to be careful about saying it's an opening shot and all of that. Like, we think this is an actual responsible approach. If the president or the Senate wants to counter, then they need to counter with something that's responsible. And you and I both know full well they won't do that. I don't want Republicans to start negotiating already about, well, it's an opening shot, but we'll cut it down. The fact is, we know we have to deal with mandatory spending at some point, but we need to have the willingness to sit down and figure out the right way to do it to preserve Social Security retirement benefits and Medicare benefits while we actually address the problem. But Andy and I and others in the Freedom Caucus, we laid down a marker saying you got to reduce discretionary spending. We got to go cut the bureaucrats. You got to go target the woke, weaponized bureaucracy that's advancing all this CRT, critical race theory, and Marxist garbage. Let's go abolish an agency. Get rid of the Department of Education and give that money back to the people. Let's be bold. Let's go. I think right now we ought to double down and say, let's go get rid of the World Health Organization that's screwing the American people's sovereignty and siding with China. Let's go after ATF because they're trying to make felons out of Americans for pistol braces. Let's go after the NIH and CDC and FDA because of the COVID tyranny. Let's go after, let's go down the line. Let's go defund these world organizations. So I think there's a lot that we can do. We can go further than we did here. But this got us to be able to get Republicans together to send this over to the Senate and make them choke on it.
Yeah, last thing, I was thinking if Biden, and there's talk right now that Biden may come back and just say, hey, look, you didn't hear me. It's a clean debt ceiling. Is there, I certainly wouldn't say make this opening bid to concede anything. Do you think if Biden comes back and tries to play smash mouth that, hey, clean debt ceiling or nothing, that you will then have enough leverage to say, okay, let's have a real old-fashioned fight on this thing and even come back with something harder?
I absolutely believe that and do not intend to give an inch in that direction. I mean, look, I'm not saying that there isn't some place where we can land this plane, for a shorter maybe debt ceiling hike or something. I mean, like I said, we've all talked about those ideas. You want to raise it, a certain amount or do it for 3 months or 6 months. We can talk about one price tag. But at the end of the day, if you dare try to come to us with a so-called clean debt ceiling increase, that is borrowing money with no changes, that is an absolute no. That is a burn the place down. We're going to bring this place to a standstill, no go. And I think Republicans agree with that. There's probably a handful that might want to get a little wishy-washy, but we will try to deal with that, straight up. I've been very honest with my colleagues. Happy to work with them to get something over to the Senate. But no way do we go cut some sort of deal like that.
Well, what's great is to know that in this in the proposal you put forward in the first week of January, that you actually had thought out and gamed out where we'd be and getting some leverage here in this debt ceiling finally.
Yep.
Congressman Roy, you've got a big event this weekend. Can you tell us, our audience, about it? We want to make sure everybody that's there can attend or get it on live stream or however they can get the content of you and your colleagues.
Well, we got a big event down in Austin, Texas, that we're going to have down there on the border. We're going to be trying to encourage, look, we're trying to do what we can here in D.C. We passed legislation out of the Judiciary Committee a week ago. Andy and I worked on that together to move it through that would actually do the job of securing the border. Basically, it adopts President Trump's policies for the most part with respect to migrant protection protocols, enforcing the law, not releasing people. We got to get that off the House floor and over to the Senate. But while Biden and the Senate stand in our way, we need Texas to hold the line. We're trying to encourage the Texas legislature and the Texas governor and the folks down there to stand up and hold the line. So we're going to be at the Capitol in Austin this Saturday. I think it starts at noon. A lot of great patriots going to be there. Jason Jones, I don't know, he's a great guy down there following all the cartels. Laura Logan, a whole bunch of great folks. And so I hope people will show up at the state capitol in Austin on Saturday.
We'll make sure we drive a lot of traffic there. Congressman, last thing, your social media, how do people follow you, your webpage? They want to know more about how you're driving these policies.
Yeah, absolutely. On Twitter, it's Chip Roy, CHIPROYTX, Chip Roy, Texas. And on the website, my official website is roy.house.gov. And look, we're going to be out there and keep trying to push through this and message to make sure we force this on the Senate and the president. We need help. We need the American people. You need to engage. You're listening nationwide. Push your Republicans to hold the line. Let's not give an inch. We laid the marker down. Let's go further now. And if you're in a Democratic district, you go make sure your Democrat members of Congress know as well. And the last thing is demand that we secure the border. When Title 42 ends week after next, man, it is going to be a mess at the border. Again, we passed a good bill out of House Judiciary. That's a long way from getting signed by the president. We need to rally for freedom, rally for sovereignty, rally behind the people here who are trying to carry forward President Trump's great policies at the border.
Congressman, we had Todd Bensman on last hour, and Todd just got back from Reynosa, and there's 15,000 Haitians right there in Reynosa, right across from McAllen, all waiting to come as soon as Title 42 is lifted. So we got beyond a crisis in this nation right now, and so proud that you're going to go down to Austin and rally folks.
Amen. Well, thanks. That Todd also lives in Austin, and he's a great American and exposes a lot of what's going on along with Jason Jones. Thank you for what you do on doing that. We can win this fight. The American people are with us, especially Hispanic voters. I mean, President Trump won a border county in Texas for the first time in 100 years. Hispanic voters are with us. And Governor DeSantis won 62% of voters in Florida after sending a shipment of folks up to Martha's Vineyard. Governor Abbott won his election after sending folks up to Kamala Harris's house. Look, we win when we're on offense. We win in the rule of law. We win when we're not playing race politics and dividing us up by race and identity. We win when we stand up for America. And I hope that Republicans understand that here on the Hill and throughout the country.
Congressman Chip Roy, God bless you. Thank you for coming on. Look forward to following you on social media.
Amen. Take care. God bless.
Thanks, brother. Obviously, I want to talk to you about the budget and your heroic fight here, but let me talk to you. You've been the leading tip of the spear on the border invasion, and particularly what's happened in Arizona. These other border states is outrageous. Every state's a border state, every city's a border city, every town's a border town. Give me your update. You're the first guy, I believe, to put out impeachment, to document impeachment on Mayorkas, on all of them. on the invasion of the southern border. We had Bensman on. There's 15,000 Haitians now in Reynosa. He says there's 3 times that many, I guess, from Venezuela in Juarez. This thing gets worse every day. The Biden regime lies to Congress every day, straight up. Where do you think we stand?
Well, I've got even worse news than Todd does, because I just got off the phone with a county supervisor from my state, sits right on the border. They just had a briefing with the sector chiefs from San Diego through Yuma to Tucson, and they are told that there's between 700,000 and 1 million people massing south of the border, that when Title 42 goes away, the cartels have planned to overwhelm the system. And so what's going to happen there, Steve, is what they're anticipating. They do not have enough resources to keep them in the detention and processing facilities. They don't have enough personnel, and so when those facilities get full, what's going to happen, and this is real because we've seen things like this in the past under this administration, they're going to just take pictures. They're not even going to do full-on processing. They're going to take pictures. If we're lucky, fingerprints, probably not even that. And then they're going to release them right into the local communities along the border. That's what's going to happen. It will be unlike anything we've ever seen, far worse than the Haitians underneath the bridge in Del Rio, where you had 28,000 people come over the course of 3 days. Steve, and basically the word that the locals are getting is, and I hate to use this term, but this is what they said was they were actually told by CBP officials is, I'm sorry, you're screwed. And the problem with it is CBP agents and their families, their support system, they all live in these communities. They know how bad it's going to be, but this administration is not going to back them up, not going to help them. It's going to be overwhelming, Steve.
We're bringing some news here. Give me that again. You just got off the phone with a sector chief. Did I hear the number 700,000 to 1 million, sir?
It was not with the sector chief. It was with a county supervisor in Arizona, and he was relaying that they just had this briefing with the sector chiefs and CBP and some of the NGOs and you know mayors and council members from San Diego to Yuma and beyond, moving east, and that's the number that they gave them. And they said that the number coming through the Darien Gap, and I've had this confirmed from a different source when I was talking earlier this week, is that there's more than a growth of 500% people coming through the Darien Gap, and that's in Panama in the last a week or two. The cartels are experts. They know that the U.S. will logistically facilitate this, specifically under the Biden administration. So they've ginned up, and they're going to overwhelm the system. Who knows how many bad guys are going to come in, how much drugs are going to come in, how much problem people. You know, you're going to have terrorists. You're going to have gangbangers. You're going to have human and sex trafficking, because we will simply be overwhelmed. And the numbers, I guess the official number was 688,000. But that was from a month ago or so, and they anticipate now between 700,000 and 1 million.
Can we hang on? Can we pull the clip from this morning? Do we have that?
No, not yet.
Okay, fine. This morning, I want to I want to tie this to the budget, and if I get it, I want to play what we're playing the call over this morning. Speaker McCarthy was on CNBC and had the CNBC guy that's the most conservative, Joe. And he was going after him, talking about these ultra MAGA radicals, these ultra MAGA extremists on the budget. And they specifically talked about the defunding of the FBI. Said, you guys essentially want to defund the police, and you want an open border because you're cutting money here for Border Patrol. Now, the reason we wanted you on, you're the big. I tell you what, we've got it. Let's play this. I want you to hear it, and I want you to respond, because this is targeted directly at Congressman Andy Biggs, one of the great patriots and one of the few individuals that fights every day to secure the border. Let's go ahead and play the clip.
What was getting back just to the debt thing, what was a little bit disconcerting is, I don't know whether it's gaslighting or what I call it, but I'm hearing that you now in this bill, I heard Senator Van Hollen say you're trying to cut and defund law enforcement, and you're also cutting all of the border security funds. So I just don't even know how you respond when we're that far apart on both sides, and both sides are so willing to demagogue and ultra MAGA. That's all. Wacko. These are wacko ideas. If someone should actually have to actually try to get a job to receive some things at home. So I don't know how you ever come together, Speaker, and I don't know how
Well, the first
scares
thing
me at CNBC, because we're talking about the full faith and credit of the U.S. government here.
The thing that you should look at is anytime someone says about the bill, just simply ask one question. Show me where it's written in the bill. Show me where in the bill that it says we cut anything. In the process, we simply go back to the spending levels we were at 4 months ago. Were 4 months ago, did a number of new border people be hired or cops get hired in that process? The only people who've defunded the police have been the Democrats, openly and willingly, and we've watched what happens in crime in our community. If you watch and compare what has passed in the House and what has passed in the Senate, there's a big comparison there. We are simply doing the work that we said to the American public we would do.
So, Congressman Biggs, and by the way, Joe Keenan there was actually saying what the Democrats say, but you can get the gist of it, that the Andy Biggses of the world, this ultra MAGA extremists, are going to give us an open border because the cuts you're talking about are cuts that are going to get rid of all law enforcement, all border patrol, all of it. What say you, sir?
Well, I mean, the guy was right that the left demagogues this stuff because the Republicans are the only ones that actually recognize that there's a crisis on the border. Steve, yesterday in a committee hearing, a prominent Democrat actually said this. She referred to the border crisis as the so-called border crisis. And I pointed that out to her. And the reality is we want to get resources there. We want to make sure that you've got enough money to hire new agents. That they have the material that they need. We just did a bill. We're doing two bills. One that's going to finish building the fence. Another, and also provide all kinds of technical support for the Border Patrol agents and give them what they need, whether it's the lighting that they need, the roads and the infrastructure, all those things that they need. And at the same time, as part of that bill, we're going to try to close the border between the ports of entry. And when you come in, you're going to have to follow the law for a change. The other side, Steve, they don't want to do that. They're the ones who really have the border open. And I just say to people who demagogue on this, say, come with me to the border. I'm happy to take you to the border and show you what's going on. I'll show you what's going on at the ports of entry. I'll show you what's going on between the ports of entry. If the CBP will let you, I'll take you into a soft-sided facility. They don't usually let civilians see that. But the bottom line is the other side wants this border open more than anything. So they're willing to lie, cheat, and steal, even on the messaging.
Let me go back to the budget. You and Congressman Gates were one of the hard six that really got these tremendous changes that you would not budge an inch. And I know you're very close to Chip Roy. I know you're very close to Eli Crane, some of the other folks that took it up to the limit but voted for this. You were a no. And one of the things I've been telling is that, Andy Biggs has got, 400 different proposals of bills that'll get to real cuts. And I mean, Speaker McCarthy did say it. He says, hey, these aren't really cuts. They're stop the increase in spending, right, that we already ratcheted up in 2022. Where do we, and when I say opening bid, right now Politico is reporting the White House is completely on their back heel, okay? So when they come back and say, we're not going to increase the debt ceiling, we're not going to have any cuts, you got to give us a clean, or we'll have a cup of coffee with McCarthy, but we're not budging off what we said is going to be the law. Where do we go to what Andy Biggs wants to do? Do we go to a place where there are real cuts? And why did you not join up and sign up with the traveling squad that put this together?
Well, first of all, you're right. Chip and I worked on this type of stuff, and he and I work on everything from the budget issues to the border issues together, and we work hard together. Just sometimes we'll have a disagreement. So we had a disagreement on this one, and the disagreement is this. It is the speaker identified it very well. He said, we're not actually cutting spending, we're cutting the increase in spending. So think about that. You're moving for $31.4 trillion in national debt. The baseline from CBO says in 10 years that'll be $52 trillion. And if you include any Biden spending, it's going to be 55 to 58 trillion. The savings here is about 4.6 to 4.8 trillion, depending on which day they gave me the numbers. But I'm going to round it up and say it may be $5 trillion over 10 years. So what that means is instead of having 52 trillion, you're going to be at 47 or 48 trillion dollars in national debt. Absolutely unsustainable. So that's one of the reasons that I introduced over 500 projected spending reductions to try to get this thing down. And I also offered additional, if you took it down to 2019 levels, and I would take it down to 2019 levels on everything except for three or four things: the mandatory Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the Border Patrol, which our border security. But you can't use the border security stuff to actually expedite people coming into the country illegally, which is what this administration would do. If you did that, you would actually you would obviate the need to increase that the debt ceiling. And if we didn't fully obviate that, it would be just a very small increase. And I just believe, Steve, if you want the same thing, then keep doing this. This is not the first time that Republicans have said, okay, we're going to give you a debt ceiling lift, and we just want to increase the spending at a lower level than you're proposing. And for me, that just wasn't good enough. We're on the brink. We're on the brink. There was a Forbes piece not too long ago where the guy said, look, if we don't actually bend the curve down, the trajectory down, not just a lowering of the slope, which is what's happened. Their slopes, Democrats' slopes this, where our proposed slope is this. I'm saying you got to bend it down. So the Forbes writer said, if you don't bend that slope down, guess what? You're going to, we will lose the America as we know it. You will not have America as you know it. And that's my big concern. That's why I took the stance I did. And I'm hoping that that Mr. McCarthy, Speaker McCarthy, if the Senate comes back and says, forget it, we're going to just raise this thing, and the White House says the same, I hope we ratchet it down. I hope we ratchet it down and try to reduce the spending, so maybe you don't have to have that kind of debt ceiling increase.
This is the point I'm making, is that they come back and try to do this nonsense on a clean thing and say, okay, we tried to play nice, but now let's go smash mouth. What is it? And look, McCarthy's got a tough job. I said his job much tougher than we have here in the war room. We're the dead enders. The posse's the chairman of the chairman of the creditors committee. He's got to wrangle cats. But what is it that moderate Republicans and establishment Republicans don't get about what you just talked about? The math here is pretty straightforward, and these are bright people. What I don't understand is, what are they missing? Because their constituents can't possibly support this insanity. What is? I think people question what's going on our side of the football in the conference.
Well, I wish I knew. Some have indicated, like you had some folks that said that they had to absolutely have the ethanol subsidies, right? Okay, but then you're going to have to offset that with a cut somewhere else. That's what I would have said. Okay, what are we cutting? What are we cutting to give you those subsidies? And the bottom line is, there are some people, and I get it, they're looking for very particularized interests, and I'm not sure the country understands the gravity yet. Because when this country understands the gravity, believe me, then the members of Congress will understand the gravity. And I think while a lot of members of Congress see it, they don't have trouble believing it, and they can't translate it to their constituency, and they're afraid that they will get unelected. That's all I can guess. That's all I can hazard a guess about, Steve.
Congressman, how can they find out more about this principled stand that you took? And look, we're not trying to, um, talk down of anybody else. This was a tough one. It was something that was important to get done. It's put the White House back on their heels. But how can people find out more? If we're going to get it out to the nation, how can the War Posse find out more about Andy Biggs and what he's doing here?
Yeah, Steve, before I give you that, I'll just say this. If it wasn't for the Freedom Caucus, it would not have looked anything like this. I'm just telling you, it just would not have looked anything like this. Everything that you saw in there was Freedom Caucus driven. I really believe the speaker would have kind of just put a couple of tokens of some paint or Band-Aids on it and sent it over. But this was done by the Freedom Caucus, and so I don't criticize anyone who worked on this. But if you want to know, I put out a number of videos, Steve, about leading up to this, talking about debt ceiling, what it is, talking about structural deficit, talking about why we do this, and you go to @RepAndyBiggsAZ or at biggs.house.gov. That's going to get you to see those videos and my explanation.
Congressman, you're doing the work. Keep fighting. Really appreciate it, sir. Short commercial break. We'll be back in the war room in just a moment.
Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
We have Alex DeGrasse is joining us. Alex, thank you very much. Stefanik and team are doing an incredible job. I'm very complimentary. Leadership was able to pull this together. It's not the bill I would want. I would want real cuts. The War and Posse wants real cuts, but we understand to put something out there. And Politico's kind of confirming the fact of what people thought, particularly people in leadership, said, if we got something that's tough and we understand it's not perfect, and the hard right of War Room are gonna complain, right, as we should. But Politico's reporting today, which you've been talking about to me for a couple of weeks, that Biden never expected this. They're kind of gobsmacked right now about where they go, and the polling shows that the American people feel that the MAGA and the Republicans are being straight with them in trying to settle this and not taking these extreme positions like a clean debt ceiling lift. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Steve. So the number one priority is obviously dramatic spending cuts, which the American people voted for when they put in a House Republican majority, which the posse played obviously a huge role in. And I think the key here is to get Biden to the negotiating table with Speaker McCarthy. That is what the far left, Biden's handlers want to avoid at all costs, because they know when he gets in a room with the speaker, we're going to clean his clock. And they have no answer to the American people. A clean debt ceiling is off the table. I mean, Senator Manchin's saying that. The cracks are breaking in the Senate, and the voters are on our side, especially in these critical districts. So they underestimated Republicans and thought that, for weeks you heard them going on TV, MSNBC, well, we need a plan. They can't pass a plan. Well, we've passed a plan, and they need to meet us and have a conversation about it and how we can cut spending, because it will be Joe Biden that takes us over the cliff. We've done our job as House Republicans, and now Biden needs to meet us somewhere and get a handle on it.
Do you think that they understand that the posse and much of the Freedom Caucus kind of backed off here and said, okay, if we need to do this to get to the 218, right, we'll do it, but that there are 40 or 50 votes at least that are sitting there going, no, if you come back to us, if you try to pull this nonsense of a clean debt ceiling, you're not going to sit down with McCarthy, we're going to go where we want to go, like Biggs is, go back to 219, let's start having some real cuts. Do you believe the Democrats right now in the House and the Senate and the Biden White House, do you think that they understand how serious our side of the football is, and that we think that we can bring the American people along for even deeper cuts?
I think that Democrats know that, and that's why they're panicking, Steve, because we are actually pretty unified in terms of marching forward as one team. They're the ones that have issues. They don't have a plan, Steve. If they did, they would pass it. They would put out a plan. A clean debt ceiling is not a plan. I mean, that's just not going to happen. And so that will be a choice that they make if they're going to take us over the cliff on their side. And, the polling is already on our side. That's why they're panicking, because voters are smart. I think the posse's out there. I mean, the fact that voters understand this sort of somewhat complicated issue is pretty interesting. That it's got pretty high, voters know, I guess, in these battleground seats that there's this negotiation going on. I mean, people are making steep cuts at home, Steve, so why can't people make steep cuts in the government? I mean, some of this stuff is very, very basic stuff as a starting point. See, the deal is, Steve, as soon as they start admitting that they have to claw back COVID funds, that we have to cancel these Green New Deals, we've won, and then it's a free fall from there on their side, if that makes sense, right? They can't afford to give up an inch because the whole thing will crumble on their side.
So the couple things I want to go through. Tell me, you're the analytics guy. As you've seen some of the polling and the data come in here, what is it telling you about how this is going to break, particularly if we're able to get the word out even more to the American people?
So two things. In safe Republican seats, we are overwhelmingly, like, our base is with us. They know, and they've actually given faith, to Speaker McCarthy. I mean, the polling numbers look really good. We understand that, look, we've got to get in the room. We've got to negotiate in good faith. We've got to get a handle on this debt. We need steep cuts. I mean, the American people know that you need steep cuts. Cutting the government right now is actually a popular position in these battleground seats. Voters know. So that's a rare thing. I mean, it's somewhat kind of tough traditionally to get people to cut government, right? So right now, momentum is on our side, and that's what Democrats are panicking about. I think ultimately, the Democrats is interesting. So they're launching negative ad campaigns in some of our swing seats. I think they're keeping the pressure up because they're trying to have us cower. So this is a real big inflection point, frankly, in terms of how this is playing out for 2024, because they're leaning in and we're leaning in, and it's only going to get much hotter over the next 2 weeks.
It's going to get hotter, and also even the way the deal's structured. If they agreed, which they won't, to the Republican proposal, this means we're back at the negotiating table. I don't know, in November or December or January. Not just on appropriations. We're back on hitting the debt ceiling again. So this is going to be a running gunfight all the way up to 2024. This is going to be the centerpiece of it. Two things. Number one, I want to get to the Green New Deal, but we just had Andy Biggs on here. He just got off with a county supervisor in Arizona at one of the frontline counties. They're saying, hey, we just had a conference call, and they're telling us there's 700,000 to 1 million basically illegal aliens on the other side of the border, that once 42 comes off, they're just going to bum rush the gates. And I think it's the NBC report you got me, that the Democrats, everybody's talking, the administration say, well, we're out of money. We don't have money for Border Patrol right now, so the gates are just going to be open. What is going on here, sir?
Well, I think it's obviously the crisis here. It's pretty bad. We've been getting updates. It's really not even just the southern border, but it's the northern border. But also thousands of illegals pouring in through Canada, coming up through Mexico. Illegals pouring in New York City, then taking buses upstate. I just was watching video of local residents in Elisa's district with packs of illegals running through. These are dirt roads and farmers, Steve. I mean, it's sort of a crazy situation up on the border. So it's really happening everywhere, and it's a total collapse of our sovereignty. That's another thing. I mean, the debt ceiling is one big issue, Steve, but you've got this crime crisis, you've got the illegal immigration crisis, which fuels the crime crisis, you've got this debt issue, and then you've got this energy situation with energy costs and the fact that Democrats have walked the plank. They've taken this brutal vote opposing H.R. 1, and you've got some districts, New Mexico, other areas, Alaska, where energy is critical, and it's very surprising to see them vote against domestic energy. So all of these critical wedge issues that I know the posse is going to kind of dig in on as we gear up in 2024. And, it's very ripe for our side. I mean, this border stuff is getting out of control, and more voters are learning about it and figuring out what's going on, and it's getting completely out of control.
Look, MAGA turned out to deliver this House, the 10, 12 seats we picked up to give us the 5-seat majority. We have our nose rubbed in every day of how New York State would provide at least did an incredible job, but they rub in our nose in that all those seats are going to swing back, and they're going to swing back because you have this ultra MAGA, group in Congress. What's your sense right now with energy, with border, with crime? What's your sense right now of these swing seats that are so essential to keep in New York State? Are we in good shape?
We feel like we're in great shape in New York. There's 9 competitive seats. 8 of them are defense. 1 is a very clear offensive, probably in the Hudson Valley. It's a top 10 seat across the country. I think last cycle we really talked about like this very, very big map. And, this time, a lot of the word at the top of the party is let's really, really dig in. This thing's going to be a knife fight over, few seats due to redistricting, due to other factors. Obviously, there's sort of less quote unquote competitive seats as we see it now. So some of these seats, it's going to be like more spending, more energy, more efforts than you've ever seen before. I think a key thing that we talked about the last time I was on the show, Steve, is look, we really need to get out there. Our folks need to be talking to independents, traditional Democrats, soft Democrats, we call them, spreading our message on the border crisis, the debt ceiling, educating voters on early in-person voting, ballot harvesting, all these initiatives. I mean, one of the big things we've just launched with the lease is this battleground fund where all we're going to be doing is ballot harvesting and different things like that in New York State. Because that's critical, Steve. If we don't get on board with getting votes banked, we are done. So we're going to be upping our budget across national Republicans in general for those type of efforts by like thousands of percentage points in terms of how we're going to be spending money across the board. So there's a lot of big news kind of going out on that front. And the key is for everyone is, MAGA's all in. I mean, we're looking in the weeds. We understand the debt ceiling, but getting out there and sort of educating these swing voters, independent voters, Democrats, because once they know the facts, they frankly are on our side. I mean, people understand we can't write a blank check for Joe Biden. I mean, it's a disaster. They understand how much we're paying at gas. 90% of Americans in the polling, Steve, want to increase domestic traditional energy. I mean, 90%. I mean, there's no better issue polling wise. And you've got Democrats in areas where you've got massive energy jobs, Colorado, New Mexico, Alaska, and they vote against reducing the permitting process. I mean, those are thousands of jobs. These people can't help themselves. And, this ultra MAGA thing is a scam. I mean, all they're trying to do is juice their own turnout, which they frankly did do successfully. And I think that was an issue we had, turning out the Democrats. I mean, they came out and drove just like we did. So we need to be prepared for that. And the way to cut their numbers down is by bringing independents and cutting through the noise with the issue set that we need to deliver, I would say.
Last question. If Biden, you see how the Politico story, if Biden, because there's some voices in Biden's White House are telling him, play hardball now. Your whole presidency rides on this. Just come back and say, no, it's got to be clean or nothing. Do you think that galvanizes the MAGA forces in the House to get the moderates on board that we got to be tougher here, that we tried to meet them halfway, you try to accommodate, and you just got to put up in your face? Do you think a Biden rejection of this offer from the House will actually empower the Freedom Caucus and more of the MAGA elements to convince some of these moderates that, hey, you can't, these guys are never going to be straightforward in this, and we got to play hardball?
I think you're going to see some of that, but I think the key is going to be like the ball. I mean, I guess we'll have to see. I mean, the ball is really in their court. I mean, we did our job in the House. I mean, we've got a bill passed that, cuts spending massively, does, this and that. But Speaker McCarthy said himself, this is just the beginning. I mean, I believe I've read reporting, although I don't know for sure, they've promised a ballot budget amendment. I think I read that in regards to Nancy Mace and some other things. So this is just the start of, like you said, a total gunfight through 2024, and momentum's on our side in the polling where voters know that we need to substantially cut the government. I mean, you don't see that often over the last 10 to 20 years where people want to slash government. Right now, they do. And so I think that's why you've got the momentum on our side, whether it's MAGA moderates, everyone's somewhat together, like Congressman Biggs was saying. While he didn't agree with the bill, it's, the people like Chip Roy, other conservatives that have worked on it, it's sort of a good starting point, obviously. Now, whether there's another bill or things like that, I'm not sure. But the reality is we did our job ultimately as House Republicans, and now Joe Biden needs to come back. I mean, I don't think the American people are going to accept him not doing anything. I mean, ultimately, they will implode in the polls. They will have to do something. So it will be very interesting to see how that plays out, because I do think you're going to see movement in the Senate. You're seeing Manchin, maybe Sinema, some other folks that are going to say, we need to do something. So maybe there's a bill that moves in the Senate, then they're cut loose, just like that crime bill, Steve, which is not to go on another tangent, but that crime bill we're seeing is one of the top polling issues. I mean, the Biden White House said, don't vote for that Republican bill to override DC's crime bill, DC, which is a total hellhole. Then they broke in the House, they broke in the Senate. Now they, then they had to, the Biden people signed it, right? Biden signed it. So they don't have a handle on the basic facts, and that's how this is playing out. So it's going to be really interesting, but I'm not sure about another bill or things like different things like that. I think in the future there'll have to be another one, obviously, but in the short term, I'm not sure.
Alex, how do people follow you on social media? How do they get to the website over at Team Elise to get more of the information, all the stuff you're working on?
Well, LeeStefanik.com is a good place to start. And then I'm on Twitter, DeGrasse81, Getter at DeGrasse, Truth and all of it. Appreciate everyone. But the key, everyone, is find your 510 independents. Start now, educating them on our issue set and getting the word out, because that's what's going to make the difference.
And get them to the polls early. Okay, Alex DeGrasse, thank you very much. Honored to have you on here. Nicole, new federal state. Listen, I'm tomorrow we're going to have Jane Zirkle. And we're going to break down this Michelle, the Praz Michelle case where he's guilty on all charges. $100 million trying to get Miles go out. We're going to get to that. There's all types of rumors out there about and information coming about Miles and what's happening. I want to get to that tomorrow. I do want to focus on today something quite powerful, because the new federal state's done a tremendous job up on Capitol Hill of educating congressmen about what the reality is of the Chinese Communist Party and what they're trying to do, not just to Miles's followers and people like yourself, the new federal state, we're just at the tip of the spear of combating the Chinese Communist Party, but what they're doing with Chinese nationals in America. Can you walk through this amazing letter that's been sent over to Christopher Wray at the FBI, ma'am?
Yeah, so I just happened to see this letter drafted by Mike Gallagher, chairman of the Committee on the CCP, and this letter was supported by 12 lawmakers, congressmen or women in the House, including Neil Dunn, Michelle Steele, and Jim Banks. I applaud this letter. Basically, this letter is demanding answers from the FBI about when did they become and how did they become aware of the CCP's rampant law enforcement, which is illegal, totally illegal on the U.S. soil. And according to the letter, it's actually a human rights group called Defenders Reports first broke the news about the discovery over more than 100 CCP's overseas police station spread all over the world, including one in New York City. So that report broke the news back in September last year. And in February, members of the Congress wrote a letter to the FBI demanding their investigation. And then the FBI waited until October last year to issue the search of that location in Lower Manhattan. And the arrest announcement just came in days ago. So basically, these lawmakers are demanding the FBI to answer, basically it's an oversight issue, because we all know FBI's job is to identify and monitor the threats before they became a harm to the community. And now they're relying on the public source information and start acting only upon everybody has been aware of the threat.
Here's what I understand. Miles, and we know this, Miles was, had FBI people working with him from the very beginning time he got to the United States. He was very upfront. He had come on War Room years ago. I had been on his show years ago. He used to talk about this. One of the key elements, the Ministry of State Security would threaten Chinese nationals here, particularly the anti-CCP, with problems with their families back home. How did the FBI, in your belief, how did the FBI miss something that's out there in broad daylight, and now it's going to be a huge thing? Because these congressmen, we've checked with some of the staffs, they're outraged that this was allowed to go on, and only now the FBI has moved on it. Any thoughts on that, ma'am?
Yeah, it's very disturbing, because as a Chinese American who have been living in this country for over 20 years, I've seen very similar CCP police station or CCP front organization across the United States of America, and ranging from the East Coast to West Coast, or from LA to San Francisco to Chicago to Houston, and all over the places. And why they're only making arrests in New York City. And so this is deeply troubling because the Chinese American people are the biggest victim of the CCP's police station. And that's why the people who are living in this country, I have a lot of Chinese American friends, they are afraid of speaking truth to the power. They are afraid of coming to the camera and to expose the CCP's illegal activities because they're being held as hostage, by the CCP's secret police station on the U.S. soil. And usually, the Chinese American people have their loved ones back in China, and the CCP police station will start making harassment against their loved ones back in China. But the most important thing, these illegal CCP's front organization or United Front organization, they do not just spy on the Chinese dissidents. They're getting involved into the local politics. Remember Eric Swalwell, his campaign was helped by Fan Fan, who is a CCP spy. And also the CCP police station in New York, they put together fundraising activities for the local politicians. And we heard from the news, Chuck Schumer and Mayor Eric Adams returned the money they got from the CCP police station's operative. They returned the money. And so there's so many things that we need to, I like to, demand more actions.
Leo DiCaprio said in the trial that Jolo, who's an agent of the Chinese Communist Party, and they helped him steal the money, talked about putting $40 million into the Democratic Party. $40 million to basically get more activity of the Chinese Communist Party. Nicole, we're going to have you back on tomorrow. We'll talk about all this update on Miles, particularly what we're hearing out of mainland China, what action she's taking. Till then, how do people get to you? How do they get to New Federal State? How do they get to your news program? How do they get to you?
Follow our website, nfscofficial.com, and also our Twitter handler is NFSC Speak and Getter NFSC Speaks. There's so much to talk about the Price Michelle case because this is a story that has been suppressed and censored by the mainstream media. And American people need to know the truth because you deserve to know the truth of why Mr. Moskwa, CCP enemy number one, is behind the bar. This is not about his personal individual liberty. This is about your country's justice system that has been weaponized by the CCP. Thank you so much for having me today.
Amen. Truer words have never been spoken. Miles Guo is the first guy to come here in this country and warn us about the CCP specifically. This is not about China. It's not about Lai Beijing. It's not about the Chinese people. They're not the enemy of our country. The Chinese Communist Party is the enemy of the Chinese people, and they're the enemy of the American people. Nicole, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You show heroism every day by doing this, so thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and it is going to be on fire. Darren Beatty is going to be my wingman tomorrow. Darren Beatty will be in studio for both hours right now as my co-host. See you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.